Hello everyone and welcome to another remarkable game from round 3 of this year's Sinquefield Cup. It is the chosen one, Alireza Firouzja versus Levon Aronian, and it is a game also one for the ages. Features a very early surprise by Levon and a very early piece sacrifice by Alireza, and when you combine the two, it just delivers a very interesting game. So let's see what happened. Alireza has the white pieces and he opens with e4. We have e5 by Levon, knight f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4, going for the Italian game. Levon plays bishop c5 at the Giuoco Piano and now pawn to d3. Alireza does not go for the strongest move, but the Giuoco Pianissimo will have to do. We have knight f6, we have h3 now, and Levon castles, knight to c3, and now you get a position where usually three moves are played in every game. That's h6, that's d6, and that's a6. So h6 and d6 are far more common, a6 not so common, but also played. But the move Levon plays has been played only a handful of times in top games, and that is knight to a5. He goes after the bishop on c4, and it's just a very annoying thing to see. Because he's allowing knight captures on e5. But if Alireza goes for this, then for one, you go right into Levon's preparation, and for two, you don't really, if you don't have this prepared at home, you will probably mess it up. And for example, if knight captures on e5, queen e7 attacks the knight, and now you don't have a good way of dealing with this, because if you go back knight to f3, then just knight captures on c4 will ruin your pawn structure. D captures on c4, also the pawn is now weak, and black regains the pawn and retains a better position. So what you would have to do if queen to e7, you would have to go for this bishop captures on f7, rook captures, knight captures, queen captures, and then just castles, for example, and you would get this position where Alireza gave up two pieces for the rook. So he has a rook for two pieces, but he is also up two pawns. So it's an equal game, but obviously Levon prepared this, so you don't play this. And other moves that have been tried here, aside from knight captures on e5, are bishop to b3 and castles. But Alireza plays pawn to a3, and that is now a new move. So already as of move 7, we have a completely new game, which is incredible as we are in the Giuoco Pianissimo. So Levon goes for knight captures on c4. The bishop is now up for grabs. D captures on c4. This doubles Alireza's pawn structure here, but he does gain full control over the d5 square. We have pawn to d6 and the bishop to g5, pinning the knight, bishop to e6 going after the c4 pawn, and just queen to d3, developing while defending. And h6 with bishop to h4, and this is where the game gets very wild. Here Levon could consider something like a6 or c6 or a5 or whatever, but the g5 is is just too deadly a dare to give someone like Alireza, as now you're basically asking for knight captures and g5 is coming, and this pin will remain for the rest of the game, and Alireza does go for it. Moving the bishop back just gives Levon the full control over the game, attacks the bishop, knight f4 idea in some lines, f5 is coming, so yeah, you don't want to play this. So knight captures on g5, h captures, and the bishop captures. So now if you count the pieces, you can see that both players have two rooks, both players have a knight and the bishop. However, Levon has an extra light square bishop. So if he can defend it, that's gonna be huge. And he starts with king to g7. Usually when you play this h6 g5 stuff and someone sacrifices, you want to play this king g7 idea, because you can bring the rook to g8 in some lines and then bring the king back, or you can even play rook h8 to h6 to g6 to sort of set up some sort of a defense, because white can always pile up on the pinned piece. For example, queen f3 can come, knight to d5 can be played, and you might just fall apart very quickly. So Alireza doesn't go for queen f3, he instead goes for f4. Makes sense, he wants to open up the f-file, maybe put the rook on f1 and go after the knight. So e captures on f4, and here knight to e2. This is how he wants to put pressure on the f4 pawn, and Levon has to figure out how to defend now. Black's position is fine. Black can play this, but he has to play it with absolute surgical precision, and Levon plays c6, and that's not the way to do it. It's a very tricky move that prepares the arrival of the queen via the a5 square. Now, if you imagine something like knight captures on f4, if Alireza just wins the pawn, let's say rook f1 is coming, then Levon just plays queen a5 check, and after the king moves, you don't want to trade queens or something because you're attacking, and if b4 just bishop captures, of course, rook on a1 would be hanging, the rooks are not connected, so you'd have to play something like king d1, and then bishop b6 already threatens queen captures on g5, and all of a sudden the queen has unpinned herself and is joining the attack or the defense. So after c6, Alireza plays the absolute strongest, pawn to b4. He didn't play it on move 4, but he does play it now. So pawn to b4 chases away the bishop, bishop to e3 adds a defender here, and you would be very happy if Levon just captures the pawn on f4 and unpins, so then your queen will be able to move and your knight will be able to move, but now just rook to f1. Alireza still piles up on the f4 pawn, king g6, and now pawn to h4. And now what do you play? The problem is if you play something weird, let's say you play something like a6, then knight captures on f4, bishop captures and rook captures, and you are not surviving this. This is just game over, instant resign. So you have to play something, and there's no obvious way to handle the position, but Levon finds one, as he usually does. He plays bishop captures on c4. He gives up a piece this way, queen captures on c4, and now pawn to d5. He says your king is also in the center of the board. Let's attack the white king. And now, of course, if captures, then queen captures, and black is perfectly fine. So after d5, Alireza goes back, queen to b3, and now Levon plays rook to e8. Rook to e8, bringing the rook into the attack, putting pressure on this e4 pawn. Maybe a slightly better way to defend is queen d6, simply because you are preventing the capture on f4 the way white would like it. Here, for example, if knight captures, and bishop captures, now you just move the queen e7, and if e5, then the knight goes to e4, and hopefully you survive this. It's not going to be easy, but maybe you can. Queenside castles, and it's an ugly position to play, but maybe you can do it. However, after rook to e8, now Alireza just goes for bishop captures on f4. Now the pin is no longer needed. Bishop captures, knight captures on f4 with check, king to h7, and here the beautiful castles queenside, and this is where the magic happens, or rather where the magic could have happened. Levon plays knight captures on e4, but any other move loses, as the position is completely winning for Alireza, but it's not an easy move to find. So feel free to pause the video here and try to find the, pretty much the only winning move for Alireza while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this incredible idea. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is knight captures on d5. Look at this, knight captures on d5. Spectacular. Opening up the attack towards the f7 pawn, and there's no move you can make here. Whatever you play, you're just lost, especially now as the d5 pawn is pretty crucial in black's setup here, and it doesn't matter if you recapture it. If c captures on d5, rook captures on f7 check, and it's like, okay, so what? But now king g8 attacks the rook, rook captures on d5, and there's no defense here. You can't even give up the queen for two rooks, because if king captures, rook captures comes with a discovery, so black just falls apart. So what you would have to do here is move the queen, which is just ugly. Let's say queen b6, so now you get rook f to f5, and there's no playing this. Now, yes, you're still up a knight, but with the king here threatening all sorts of nasty discoveries. Even if something like queen to e6 is played, there's even queen to f3, then queen to g4 with check, rook to h5 checkmate. Threats are in the air. It's just resigns. So obviously it's not that easy move to find, as Alireza missed it. So big congratulations to all of you who found it. But Alireza was also very low on time, so he plays knight to e2. He finds a different way to get his pieces into the attack, but now if played properly, Levon can defend this. But also Levon low on time, he doesn't find it. Rook to e7 and king to g8 hold, but the move he plays, knight to d6, does not hold, or rather it holds, except if Alireza finds the only winning attempt that exists in the position, and he does. Queen to d3 with check, and okay, what is queen d3 check? King h8, queen d4 check, king h7, and now knight to g3. Preparing knight to f5. Levon says, all right, I've seen all of this, I don't mind. Queen b6, offering a queen trade. queen d3 check, king to g8, and now knight to f5. Now you have to trade, otherwise queen g3, queen g7. So knight captures, we have queen captures on f5, and queen to e3 check. So Levon saw all of this when he played knight to d6. It's not a problem. King b1, and now queen to e6, defending on f7 and offering a queen trade. So again, this is something, all of this Levon saw. The problem is, what he missed is that Alireza can decline the queen trade and get his rook into the attack very quickly, and Levon cannot bring his rook into the defense very quickly. So Alireza just goes back, queen f2. And now, how do you play this? Getting the rook into the game via some weird maneuvers would be way too long, so he just plays a5. He wants to play a captures on b4 and then open up an attack maybe against the white king, but now rook d3. A captures on b4, rook to g3 with check, and whatever you play is insufficient. If you move the king, king h7, then queen f3, followed by queen to h5, there's no defending this, it would just be resigns. So Levon tries king to f8, at least the f7 pawn is defended, but now rook back to f3. And the problem is you don't have rook e7. If you had rook e7, then black's attack might still work. But if rook e7, there's queen d4. Threatens mate in 1 and also will pick up the b4 pawn once you tend to the mate threat. So let's say queen h6. Now queen captures on b4. Pins the rook and also threatens rook captures on f7. This is deadly. So after king e8, you have to play something to unpin here. Just rook captures on f7. And after rook captures, king captures. It seems black is up a rook, but it only seems that way. Queen captures on b7 check. And now if you go up the board, of course rook falls with check. If you go down the board, it doesn't help, because first you grab the pawn with check, and once the king moves, then you grab the rook. You are up 3 pawns, or even after capturing here, you can capture here. 3 clean pawns, completely winning for Alireza. So that's what Levon missed when he played that knight to d6 move long time ago. King to, after rook to f3, king to g8 is played. He tries to give up the f7 pawn. At least it will not come with check, but Alireza shows that it is not possible. Rook captures on f7, rook captures on a3, and now just rook to f8 check. King h7, here Alireza plays the beautiful rook, queen f7 check, and he was in this position on move 38 that Levon Aronian resigned to the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So truly a spectacular showing. It wasn't a one-sided game. There were ways for Levon to get back into the game, but he missed those few ideas. But that's the problem. Of course, you burn so much time. Both of them finished the game. Like Alireza had 30 seconds on the clock. Levon had like 1 minute. They were basically playing blitz, so for the last 15-20 moves, so it was pretty crazy. And here it's a very clean idea. You resign because if the queens get traded, then just a rook captures on f7, and it seems like you're gonna go into a rook endgame, because if a rook captures, king captures rook on f7, Alireza has h5. That's the problem. That comes with check. Now the king has to either step away or capture the pawn, and then rook captures. You are just up a full rook. And if you don't do this after queen f7 check, if you just play king to h6, of course you just get checkmated. Check here, captures, king h7, rook f7 check, king here, and of course queen g7 will be checkmate. So wild stuff. Levon tried to play in his usual style, gave Alireza the deadly dare with this g5 move, but this was, I mean, it works in many positions, but this is not one such position. Here knight captures on g5, and white is just better. So yeah, once again, hope you guys enjoyed it. For those of you who did not watch my previous video, do watch my previous video. It's one of the fiercest games we've ever shown. But in case you don't have the time, these are the standings after round 3. So Hans Niemann takes the lead, Wesley So with 2 points, Magnus Carlsen, Yanni Pomnic, Alireza, Firouzja, Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, and Linear Dominguez are tied with 1.5, and with 1 point, Levon Aronian, Fabiano Caruana, and Shahriar Mamedyarov. Okay, now I've realized that now that I've shown you the standings, even though if you haven't seen the previous video, you might get some ideas, but what are you going to do? That's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Gerald Watts, Wood, thanks, Paul Sretanovic, and Blitz44 Chess for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the Sinquefield Cup until it finishes. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.